Okay, so here's all the different tools and components for a sign install that you're going to need for a Green Team sign. So, Laura, we'll start from the bottom here. This is the bottom rider that we like to put, which has the text code and all that. It gets attached to the big sign panel with zip ties, all right? So you'll need 2 zip ties in this. And again, if you're doing your own sign install, we set you up with everything that you need except for clips or scissors or the sledgehammer. You need to have those on your own. We're just going to give you the components. All right, then you have your own sign panel. The sign panel gets hung to the sign post with these specialized little clips here. We provide those to you as well, and when we give them to you, they're going to be clipped together. I'm leaving them open just to save myself a little bit of time. There's your rider for the top of the sign. This is your stake that's ultimately going to go into the ground, and you want to make sure that when you get these stakes that there's a fender washer here and a wing nut on each of the bolts. If you don't have that hardware, you're not going to be able to put the sign up, and you got to make sure that both of these things are here. This fender washer makes your sign much stronger. If you don't put the fender washer on, the wind will literally rip the sign post right off the stakes. That's a really important component. And then of course, here is the sign post as well. You know, we do our best. This is not a great example. This one actually would not be approved to go out, and that's why I chose it, because I want to show you what is not approved. It's kind of nasty. It's not spray painted and cleaned, you know. So when they come in from out of the field, we usually touch them up, make them look good. But it does have all functional components. There's caps on either end. You want to look for that. These little channels for the rider is in good shape, and they're turning, they're working. So you want to make sure of that before you take them. It's got the eyelet here down in the bottom. That's where the sign panel is going to hang from. And again, you want to make sure that the fender washers are on either side of this sign post, because it strengthens the whole structure of the sign. Okay, so that baby's ready to go in the ground. Okay, so the key for the sign install, first of all, make sure that you're installing the sign on property that is owned by the subject property owner. Do not put a sign on someone else's property. They're going to get pissed off, they're going to rip it down, and then we're all out money. That's not good. You can put it on someone else's property if you get express permission to do so. Now, let's just pretend that this here is the road, okay, that the cars are gonna be driving by. You obviously don't want your sign to be hanging over the road, right? Like, you don't want it here, because cars may hit it, right? Or it's too close. So you have to kind of eye up how far you want to be away from the road. And keep in mind, when you're putting the stake in the ground, that post goes on top of the stake like this, right? So that's a look at what it looks like inside the post. So just know that this flap here points to where the sign panel is going to point to as well, right? So this needs to be perpendicular to the road. All right, so that's the first thing. We got to figure out where we want to put it. We don't want to put it too close. We don't want to put it too far. We want it just right. So if I'm going to gauge it, this is a good way to do it. Right about here looks good to me. Maybe back a couple inches, so I'm going to do that there. So now I know where to put it. I can probably, if the ground is soft enough, I can just kind of set it with my hands a little bit. And now I'm just going to use the sledgehammer. Now, the key is, just know, if this stake is tilted this way, your sign is really going to be tilted that way, right? Because this is the base of it. If it's tilted this way, your sign is going to be tilted. So as you're pounding the stake into the ground, you got to kind of check to make sure that it's you know, plumb either way, right? So what I like to do is carefully just kind of tap it in. Okay, so now I can see it's turning a little bit on me. I can see right now, like, you know, it's going like that. So what am I going to do about it? Well, I can kind of tap it back down below here. Don't hit this thing, because you might break the structure of it. But so now you can see it's down far in the ground, but it's loose again. So now what I can do is I can now again hold my hand, kind of get it steady, and I want to keep going really as far as I can, right? You heard the difference. Now this flap is like actually making contact with the ground, okay? And that's important, especially if you're on a hill, let's say we're on an elevation like this. Sometimes that happens, right, where you have a hill going down to the road. This flap helps the sign from tipping. That's why we buy these particular stakes. I've tried a lot of different stakes through the years. These ones work great because they have an extra flap on them. I actually pay a little bit more money to have them, because for that situation where you're on a hill, it'll hold it from tipping, all right? So the further into the ground you can get it, the more stable it's gonna be in any type of terrain, all right? So now I can take my wing nuts off and fender washers. I wanna take both off, okay? And I usually put them on the front of the flap so they don't go anywhere. They're easy to see. They're not gonna get lost in the grass. Now you can slide the post on top, like so. And that's how they go in there, like that. And just doing them one at a time. Colby, our video editor, is gonna do a good job by speeding this up right now so you guys aren't bored watching me. It's really good to have grease on there. It just makes it easier. Okay, so now we have the structure of our sign up, and it looks pretty good, right? Like it's square this way. I will admit, it's a little torqued this way. Wasn't exactly how I wanted it, but it's close enough, you know? It doesn't need to be perfect. When you're driving by at 30 or 40, 50 miles an hour, you're not gonna notice a ½ an inch turn. You know, it's no big deal. So don't get carried away with it. You could sit here all day putting up signs when you should be working on your database, doing live interviews, all those good things for monitoring. All right, so now we've got, notice we've got the clips on the same way, right? So this little end is pointing towards me here and here. Okay, that's really important that they're on the same way. So now do one at a time. I mean, you could do two. I guess it doesn't really matter. So yeah, two's probably good. But again, notice how I have my leg under here. So now I can use two hands, right? Because these clips are a little tricky. So I'm putting pressure up, and that's what's helping get the clip to move upward, right? Because I'm putting the clip in this eyelet here, and I'm pushing up with my hand, and I'm just using the force of my leg to get this little clip in place. And as you can see, it's not easy even for me, a person who's done it many times. So I'm gonna actually tie this one. All right, and now I can adjust them to make sure that they're even, right? And sitting right. So I think that looks pretty good. Good enough, yeah. A pair of scissors if you want, or a knife, whatever. Quick clip, just like that. All right, and now there's no excess hanging over them. And then the final piece to the puzzle is the top rider, which again, you slide right in the channel. Make sure it's loose enough. All right, with these, we want to center it on the sign. And now we're just gonna put them in there like that. Now it's nice and tight and you're good to go. So that's how you do the whole thing. And it's an awesome thing to do, right? Like you're putting your sign up, there's your face. You look good, you accomplish something, it looks nice. Probably the hardest part of getting the sign taken down is getting off these little clips. They're a little tricky. If you push up with your leg a little bit, then you can have two hands on this little clip. And the idea is that it's got to come up a little bit to the top to be able to push out like that, right? So then leave it there like that until you get the other one unhooked too. Now I've got them both off. Now look, easy as pie, I can just take it right off like that, right? The riders are super easy, right? It's just a little pinch up top here. There's a little channel when you're putting these things on or off. Just goes inside there, and then you screw this to tighten it. Very simple. So that goes there. Now, sometimes, like if you have hard ground, it actually makes sense to leave the post on to kind of wiggle it free, because you can actually use this to help you get the post out. Now, even this is soft ground and I'm still not able to get it out, so that's not gonna work. So what you gotta do is you should have like a sledgehammer with you or a hammer. There. pop that post off. So now, I always carry work gloves in my car with me because, you know, it's good to have, but you can see this is pretty tight in the ground. So what I'm going to need to do is just kind of loosen it up a little bit. If I just knock it around like this, you can see it's coming loose a little bit. Now I can kind of jimmy it and pull it out. All right, that's the key there. So that's how you get it apart.